He never saw them coming. August 12, 1975. Backstage at the Las Vegas Hilton. Elvis Presley stood under harsh dressing room lights, exhausted, seconds from stepping on stage before 20,000 fans. Then the door opened. Priscilla walked in, holding Lisa Marie's hand. The moment froze the room, and what happened next would dominate headlines worldwide. Las Vegas, August 12, 1975. The Hilton glowed like a diamond dropped in the desert. Limousines hissed at the curb. Flashes from fan cameras sliced through the night. Inside, the Imperial Ballroom pulsed. 20,000 people pressed against the stage rail, chanting Elvis, Elvis, as if the name itself could conjure him. Backstage, the energy was different. Fluorescent lights buzzed above rows of sequin jumpsuits. A humid mix of hairspray and aftershave filled the narrow corridor. Elvis Presley sat before the mirror, still as stone, his reflection framed by makeup bulbs. The rhinestones on his white suit threw fractured stars across the wall, but his eyes looked tired. Dark crescents underlined the weight of endless shows. Joe Esposito, his longtime road manager, adjusted a cufflink and muttered, "Fifth night in a row, You sure you want to go again?" Elvis didn't answer right away. He tugged at his collar, looked at the clock. 8:55 p.m. Then at the stack of fan letters piled on the vanity. One was in a child's handwriting. He touched it briefly, then slid it aside. "They paid to see me," he said quietly. "That's reason enough." The band's laughter echoed from down the hall. Charlie Hodge warmed up his guitar, humming Love Me Tender. The sound floated in, soft and nostalgic, cutting through the tension like incense. For a second, Elvis smiled, but only for a second. Outside, the announcer's voice thundered over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted. It was the kind of sound that could lift a man or bury him. Elvis rose, shoulders straight, cape glimmering like liquid silver. But his hand trembled slightly as he reached for the microphone. Fame had become both crown and chain. He took a deep breath, whispering to no one, "Let's make it count tonight." Then something flickered in his reflection. An image, a thought, gone before he could name it. Maybe it was memory, maybe guilt. He blinked hard and stepped toward the stage curtain. For all the noise outside, backstage was a vacuum of quiet. A hush thick enough to hear a watch tick. Every tour member could feel it. Something about him was different tonight. The smile felt practiced, the jokes thin. Even security guard Red West whispered to another, "He's running on fumes, man." But kings don't cancel shows. They fall standing. The stage manager signaled, 3 fingers up. Elvis nodded, ready to step into the glare. That's when the phone on Joe's belt crackled. "Package arrived. Says it's personal." Joe frowned. "Not now," he hissed into the receiver. But the voice insisted, "You're gonna want to see this." Joe glanced toward Elvis, then toward the service elevator down the hall, where 2 quiet figures had just stepped out. The performance everyone came to see wasn't the real show that night. Elvis adjusted his belt, the giant gold buckle gleaming with his initials. "Time to face the music," he murmured, unaware that his past was walking closer with every echoing footstep. How does a man carry a legend when the legend no longer carries him? At what point does the spotlight stop warming and start burning? The stage lights flared. The curtain began to rise. Elvis turned toward the roar, graceful, disciplined, every inch the performer the world expected. Behind him, Joe caught sight of a child's hand tugging at a woman's sleeve just outside the doorway. His jaw went slack. Priscilla, and beside her, Lisa Marie. He froze. Should he warn Elvis? Stop them? The orchestra struck the opening note, drowning out thought itself. Elvis took 1 step onto the stage. The crowd exploded. And behind the curtain, the reunion that would shake his guarded world was already in motion. The hallway outside Elvis's suite at the Las Vegas Hilton smelled faintly of roses and cigarette smoke. A bellhop pushed past with a tray of untouched food, steak, mashed potatoes, and black coffee gone cold. 2 floors down, The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Priscilla stepped out, wearing a beige coat and sunglasses despite the hour. She wasn't there for the spotlight. Her hand tightened around the smaller one beside her. Lisa Marie, 7 years old, clutching a white teddy bear with one ear torn. They'd flown from Los Angeles that morning, telling no one except Elvis's road manager Joe Esposito. He'd been hesitant at first. "Scylla," he'd said over the phone, "he's tired. Not himself lately." Priscilla's voice was calm but firm. "I'm not here to fight. Lisa misses her daddy." As they walked down the corridor toward the suite, Lisa's shoes squeaked on the marble. "Will Daddy be happy to see me?" she asked, her voice small. Priscilla hesitated. "Of course he will, honey." But inside, she wasn't sure. Their last real conversation had ended in silence and static, a phone call that left both hearts bruised. They passed framed photos of Elvis smiling beside presidents and movie stars. Each one looked bigger than life, and farther from the man she'd once known. Joe met them at the corner near room 437. His expression was conflicted, relief and fear tangled together. "He's got a show starting in 20 minutes, he said. "If we do this, it's gotta be quick." Priscilla nodded. 5 minutes. That's all. 5 minutes that would rewrite 2 years of distance. Joe hesitated, glancing toward the closed dressing room door at the end of the hall. The faint sound of a gospel melody leaked out, Elvis humming to calm himself before stepping on stage. He turned back to Priscilla. "He's unpredictable tonight. You sure about this?" Priscilla looked down at Lisa, whose tiny fingers wrapped tighter around hers. "He needs to see her, even if he doesn't know it yet." Inside, the room was a cocoon of dim yellow light and cigarette haze. The vanity bulbs glowed against a wall of sequins, stage notes scattered like confetti. Charlie Hodge passed by, guitar in hand, and froze mid-step when he saw who was entering. "Priscilla," he whispered. She pressed a finger to her lips. "Please, just tell him we're here." In that moment, every heartbeat in the Hilton seemed to pause. Charlie disappeared into the dressing room, closing the door behind him. For a full minute, there was no sound but the distant roar of the crowd waiting in the showroom below. Lisa fidgeted, smoothing her dress. "What if he's mad?" she whispered. Priscilla knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Your daddy loves you," she said softly. "That's something no stage can take away." The door finally opened a few inches. Joe peeked in, saw Elvis standing still by the mirror. There's someone here to see you." Elvis didn't turn. "Can it wait? I got 5 minutes till showtime." Joe swallowed. It's Scylla. And Lisa." Elvis froze. The room, once humming with movement, became still. Even the band outside seemed to sense it. Music faltered, voices dropped. He stared at his reflection for a long time before whispering, "You're kidding." "No, sir," Joe replied quietly. "They're right outside." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Elvis exhaled slowly, set down his microphone, and straightened his collar. "Let them in. What would you say if the past you tried to forget suddenly knocked on your door? Can love survive fame, distance, and 1,000 unsent letters?" Joe opened the door wider. The bright hallway light spilled into the room like daylight breaking through a cave. Priscilla stepped in first, cautious but steady. Behind her, Lisa peeked from behind her mother's coat, wide-eyed, unsure, hopeful. For a long second, Elvis didn't move. The sight of them, so real, so fragile, cut through every wall he'd built. His hand twitched. His eyes softened. The king didn't say a word. He just stared, like a man seeing home for the first time in years. Charlie Hodge, watching from the doorway, later said, "It felt like time stopped breathing." Elvis took a single step forward. "Hey there, button nose," he murmured. Lisa's face lit up. And in that small exchange, before a single song was sung, the hardest man to reach in the world finally let his guard down. For a moment, the air inside the Hilton dressing room stood still. Even the humming fluorescent lights seemed to dim as the king of rock and roll locked eyes with the two people he least expected to see that night. Elvis's posture, once rigid with stage focus, softened. his jaw unclenched. The microphone in his hand tilted slightly until it brushed the floor with a soft tap. He blinked once, slowly, as if convincing himself this wasn't a dream. Lisa Marie didn't wait for permission. She let go of her mother's hand, the teddy bear tumbling to the carpet. Tiny shoes padded across the room. She stopped just in front of him, eyes wide with recognition and innocence. "Daddy?" she whispered. That one word cracked something inside him. Elvis knelt, his white jumpsuit creasing at the knees, and opened his arms. Lisa ran forward and disappeared into the hug. For a heartbeat, every man in that room forgot where they were. Charlie Hodge would later say, "You could have dropped a pin and it'd sound like thunder." Elvis held her tight, his chin trembling against her hair. "You've grown," he murmured. Lisa giggled. "You got sparkles on you." He smiled, a real unguarded smile, the kind he hadn't worn in years. Priscilla stood by the door, her hand over her mouth. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The sight alone was enough to undo months of distance, pride, and pain. The world's loudest man had never been this quiet. He finally looked up at Priscilla. Their eyes met, years of history compressed into a single glance. Neither said hello. Neither said sorry. They just stood there, breathing the same air again. Joe Esposito turned away, pretending to check his watch. 10 minutes, he whispered to himself, but no one moved. Elvis brushed a strand of hair from Lisa's forehead. "You still got that puppy I sent?" She nodded. "His name's Duke now. He sleeps by my bed." Elvis laughed softly. "Good. You keep him close, you hear?" Then, quieter, "Don't ever forget how much your daddy loves you." How often do we realize what matters only when it's almost too late? Can one hug heal years of silence? Or just remind us what we've lost? The clock ticked past 9:10. The announcer's muffled voice bled through the walls, calling his name again. But Elvis didn't move. For once, the stage could wait. Priscilla finally broke the silence. "We didn't mean to intrude," she said softly. "Lisa just wanted to see you." Elvis shook his head gently. "No, silla." "You did right." His voice cracked on the last word. For a man idolized by millions, it was a rare sound, vulnerable, human, unfinished. He rose slowly, still holding Lisa's hand. "You stay right here for me, pumpkin. Daddy's gotta sing a little, then I'll come back." Lisa frowned. "Can we watch?" He smiled. "You can. But promise me you'll close your eyes if I sing something sad." She nodded solemnly. "Promise." Priscilla could see the performer in him returning, the switch from father to icon, but now softened by something truer. As he turned toward the stage door, he stopped again and looked back at them, just once. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then he stepped into the light. What followed wasn't just another concert. It was a confession with music for truth. Down the hall, the crowd's roar surged, 20,000 strong. Flashbulbs popped, brass instruments swelled. And yet, somewhere behind all the noise, a child's giggle echoed like grace. That single sound would follow him onto the stage. 9:12 p.m., Las Vegas Hilton. The showroom's ceiling lights dimmed to gold. 20,000 people leaned forward in unison as the orchestra began the overture. Lush strings, a slow brass swell, and the scent of perfume, sweat, and anticipation rising like heat. The king was about to appear. Backstage, Elvis stood at the curtain, head bowed, mic cable looping through his fingers. The embrace with Lisa still pulsed through him. His pulse raced not from nerves but from something deeper, a reminder of what he'd almost forgotten, why he sang at all. Joe Esposito whispered, "You good, E?" Elvis nodded. "Let's give 'em one they'll remember." He strode onto the stage, cape catching the spotlight like wings. The room detonated in applause. People stood on chairs, cameras flashing like lightning. Yet for the first time he didn't drink it in. His eyes scanned the crowd and found two faces half hidden in the wings. Priscilla. Lisa, now drowsy, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. He turned to the band. "We'll start with If I Can Dream." Charlie Hodge blinked. That's supposed to close the show. Elvis shook his head. We're opening with it tonight. The king just rewrote his own setlist live. As the first notes rang out, a hush fell. The song had always been about hope, written after the darkest days of his generation, but tonight it sounded like prayer. His voice trembled on the opening line. There must be lights burnin' brighter somewhere. The audience felt it instantly. Every syllable cracked with emotion. He wasn't singing to strangers. He was singing for a little girl in the wings who still believed in him. By the second verse, his knees bent, eyes glistening under the spotlights. He clutched the mic stand tighter. If I can dream of a better land, where all my brothers walk hand in hand. A tear rolled down, catching on the shimmer of rhinestones. It wasn't performance, it was confession. When a man gives the world his voice, what's left for himself? In the crowd, a woman wept openly. A serviceman removed his hat. Even the waitresses at the back stopped moving. Joe Esposito leaned against the wall and whispered, "I've never heard him like this." At the bridge, Elvis's voice cracked, and the crowd held its breath. Then he lifted his head, eyes blazing, and delivered the final line. While I can think, while I can talk, while I can stand, while I can walk. His hand rose, trembling, pointing toward the ceiling. While I can dream, please let my dream come true, right now. He dropped the mic to his side. For a full 10 seconds, silence. Then an eruption so loud it shook the chandelier. Fans screamed his name. Scarves flew toward the stage like offerings. But Elvis didn't smile. He simply bowed his head, chest heaving, eyes wet. Backstage, Priscilla wiped her own tears. She'd seen him perform hundreds of times, but never like this, stripped of ego, singing like a man begging heaven to listen. Lisa stirred, whispering, "Mommy, is Daddy sad?" Priscilla whispered back, "No, baby, he's remembering." The king wasn't broken by fame. He was broken open by love. He stepped off the stage before the next number, ignoring the encore chant. Security tried to follow, but he waved them back. "I just need a minute," he said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he reached for the door leading to the quiet hallway. What do applause and crowns mean if the heart beneath them beats alone? As the crowd begged for more, Elvis disappeared into the corridor where his family waited. The audience thought he was catching his breath. In truth, he was walking toward the one thing he couldn't find on stage, peace. He reached the dressing room, paused, and took a deep breath before turning the handle. The door clicked shut, sealing out 20,000 voices. The dressing room felt smaller than before. Yellow bulbs haloing the mirror, steam ghosting from a forgotten mug of tea, the air conditioner humming like a faraway train. Elvis stood just inside, breath uneven. The cape slung over one shoulder like a flag after the parade. Lisa rubbed her eyes. "Daddy, you sang loud." He crouched, hands on her shoulders. "Could you hear me all the way in there?" She nodded, solemn. "I heard the hoping part." His smile wavered. "Me too, baby." Priscilla watched, careful not to step closer, careful not to step away. There was so much history between them it felt like furniture. You knew where to walk and what to avoid bumping into. Joe Esposito lingered by the door, eyes down, as if guarding a chapel. Elvis took a breath. "You hungry, pumpkin?" Lisa lifted the teddy with the torn ear. "Duke's hungry." He chuckled. A soft, private sound, and found a wrapped caramel on the vanity, peeling it open like a secret. She grinned, the room brighter by a few degrees. Elvis stood, finally looking at Priscilla. The joke fell away. The man remained. "You didn't have to do this," he said, voice low. "I did," she answered. "For her. And for you." He swallowed. "I ain't been easy." "No," she said gently. "But you've always been her father." Silence. Not the cold kind. The kind that lets truth cross a room. He stared at the Polaroid a Hilton staffer had left by the mirror. Lisa's arms around his neck from minutes ago, the image still developing. His reflection hovered beside it. Rhinestones, mascara shadows, a man split between poster and person. The king of rock and roll. Looked like a boy asking for one more chance. He spoke without looking up. I can handle the world not lovin' me, but not her forgettin' who I am. The sentence landed with the weight of confession. Joe pretended to check his watch. Priscilla blinked hard, steadying her breath. What is a crown worth if the child who should inherit your love can't remember the man beneath it? Elvis shifted, palms flat on the vanity, as if bracing against a wind. I'll fix the schedule, he said. Shorter runs. More days with her in Memphis. No excuses. Priscilla nodded but didn't applaud. Then write it down. Call tomorrow. Let actions speak so she never has to ask. He nodded once, decisive. Tomorrow. Lisa climbed onto the chair, feet swinging. Can we feed the ducks at Graceland? Elvis's face softened completely. We can feed every duck from here to Tupelo. He turned back to Priscilla. Thank you. For what? For bringing me the part of myself I was misplacing. Reflective question 2. How many apologies can live inside a thank you before it becomes a promise? A knock sounded, 2 sharp taps. Charlie Hodge cracked the door. They're chanting your name. We can stall 1 more minute, not 2. Elvis glanced at Lisa. 1 minute's enough. He pulled a thin leather wallet from the vanity drawer, slid the fresh Polaroid behind the clear window, and pressed it flat like a prayer. Then he took off one of his silk scarves, the white one fans begged for, and looped it gently around Lisa's neck. For luck, he said. Whenever you think of me, hold it tight. Lisa squeezed the fabric and smiled. Come back soon, Daddy. I will, he said. Not a performance line. A vow. He kissed her forehead, nodded to Priscilla, and straightened. The cape settled on his shoulders. The performer returned, but this time you could see the father shining through the seams. He didn't walk to the stage. He carried the room with him. Elvis opened the door. A wave of noise flooded in love, hunger, memory, rising like surf. He paused once more, hand on the frame, eyes glancing back at the Polaroid, then stepped into the hallway. By dawn, the Hilton was quiet. The crowd had gone, the glitter swept away, and Elvis's suite stood dark. Only the soft click of a projector while turning somewhere in the hallway. A hotel staffer named Mark Peters finished his shift carrying trash bags from the green room. When he reached the vanity, a Polaroid photo slipped from the edge of the mirror and landed at his feet. He picked it up. It showed Elvis in his stage suit, kneeling beside a small girl in a blue dress, both smiling under the glow of makeup bulbs. It didn't look posed. It looked honest. Mark hesitated, then slid it into his pocket. By noon, that picture would be worth more than his entire month's paycheck. Outside, the Nevada sun flared against the hotel's mirrored glass. Reporters were already circling, chasing a rumor that Priscilla and Lisa had been spotted backstage. Nobody inside the Hilton knew who talked first. Maybe a cleaner, maybe a sound tech. But the story spread like static through a radio tower. By 1:45 p.m., the Polaroid appeared on the front desk of the Hollywood Reporter. Headline: Elvis reunites with Priscilla and daughter, a family encore? Within hours, phones rang nonstop. Memphis stations replayed it. Tabloids added fantasies. Some swore they were reconciling. Others claimed he proposed again. None of them knew the truth, that the moment wasn't about romance or spectacle, but the quiet rediscovery of fatherhood. Elvis sat alone in his suite when Joe Esposito brought the paper in. You need to see this." Elvis scanned the photo, his smile frozen mid-laughter, and exhaled. "Well," he said, "at least I'm still capable of looking happy." Joe frowned. "They're turning it into a circus." Elvis shrugged. "Leching. Maybe folks need to see something good for once. When the world misreads your truth, is it better to correct it, or let the beauty stand on its own?" That night, telegrams poured in from fans. Some said the photo made them cry. Others thanked him for showing that even legends love their children like everyone else. One read, "You made my daddy call me today. Thank you." Elvis folded that telegram and placed it beside the Polaroid on the vanity. "Guess I did something right," he whispered. The man who sang for millions finally realized his quietest act had echoed the loudest. Meanwhile, across the country, the photograph landed on magazine stands. Housewives clipped it for scrapbooks. Teenagers taped it above their beds. It became the image of redemption, proof that the king still had a heart under the crown. Priscilla, back in Los Angeles, answered calls all day, gently correcting the gossip. "No, we're not getting back together," she said softly to one reporter. "It was just a visit he needed." When Lisa saw the photo in a grocery store window, she tugged her mother's sleeve. "Look, Mommy, Daddy's smiling." Priscilla's eyes filled. "Yes, baby, that's what love looks like when it remembers itself. Can the world's noise ever drown out a single, pure moment of truth?" Back at the Hilton, Elvis performed again that night. The applause was thunderous, but this time, when he raised the mic, he didn't talk about the show. He said quietly, "Sometimes, a picture reminds you what words can't." The crowd didn't understand the reference, but Joe, standing in the wings, did. And for the rest of that tour, that same Polaroid stayed tucked inside Elvis's wallet, right behind his driver's license. 2 years later, August 16th, 1977, Memphis woke to headlines that stopped hearts. Elvis Presley dies at 42. Crowds gathered outside Graceland before noon, leaving flowers, scarves, and framed photographs beneath the wrought iron gates. Among them lay a faded Polaroid, edges curled, colors ghosted, but still clear enough to show a man kneeling beside his little girl. That same photo had lived in his wallet to the very end. When the coroner cataloged his belongings, it was there, creased, thumb-worn, carried through every show, every storm. After that night in Vegas, Elvis had changed in quiet ways. He shortened his tours, spent holidays in Memphis, and mailed Lisa voice tapes where he'd sing lullabies instead of love songs. Priscilla would later tell People magazine, "That visit, it made him gentle again." At Graceland's meditation garden, fans still stop at the small brass frame that holds a copy of that picture. They don't whisper about fame or fortune. They talk about family, about how one simple reunion reminded the world that legends are made of ordinary love. The king didn't leave behind an empire. He left behind a moment that still breathes. Every August, the candlelight vigil passes by that photograph. Mothers lift their children to see it. Fathers kneel. The flashbulbs mimic the Hilton stage lights of 75. But now the sound is prayer, not applause. What if the greatest encore isn't a song, but a second chance remembered? When history crowns a man, does it also forget the father beneath? Some say spirits linger in Graceland's halls. Others say love does. Either way, the air hums with something softer now. A reminder that the night Priscilla and Lisa walked through that dressing room door, they didn't just surprise Elvis. They gave him back to himself. And maybe that's why the Polaroid never faded completely. Because some lights, once lit, don't know how to go out. Fame fades. Headlines vanish. But a single act of love, quiet, unscripted, unpublicized, outlives every encore. If the story reminded you of someone you still need to reach, don't wait for the spotlight. Share their name. Call them tonight. Because even kings only stay remembered through the hearts that still whisper their song.